Welcome to another episode of Esports Academy, proudly brought to you by the Mid-Continent Public Library, Level Up Arena, Unified, and the Varsity Esports Foundation. Today's episode is over effective communication and why this is so valuable within esports organizations and teams. And to go over this lesson, I brought a good friend of mine, the director of esports at Ottawa University, Sergio Brack, to give you guys a presentation on why this is so valuable and how to apply it. So yes, give us a warm round of applause for our guest, Sergio Brack.
All right. I want to thank everybody for having me. So my name is Sergio Brack. I am the director of esports at Ottawa University in Ottawa, Kansas. Also, formerly a founder of Ole Miss Esports down at the University of Mississippi, and then also a co-founder of College COD, one of the biggest collegiate leagues in the country right now, and the premier collegiate league for Call of Duty. So today, I am, honored to be able to present to you, the ins and out of communication in esports. So something that's obviously super important at every level, right? Obviously, my experience is more so in the collegiate side of things, but communication within esports is going to be important from a micro level, all the way down to your personal self and how you market yourself within esports, all the way, to a micro level in terms of once you get that job, right? What does that communication pipeline look like from an organizational level, all the way to macro in terms of, your business as a whole and a communication pipeline, from your boss and trickles down all the way down to you if you're in an entry level position. So we'll talk about all those today, and this will be a guide to, communication in different aspects and facets of esports along your journey. Okay, so today we're going to talk about three different types of communication in esports. So just a brief description of all of them. So the first is precursory, and so this is your introductory communication, right? I always say, and we'll talk about this later, that your communication starts well before you even have words exchanged with the person that you're trying to talk to. So what does that look like? How do you make your best first impression? We'll definitely talk about that. In-game communication. So this is something that a lot of people might think, oh, nobody's really paying attention to my in-game communication. If you're going the player route, right, and trying to build something on the amateur scene or whether it be inside a collegiate scene. And so we'll talk about that and sort of what that looks like. And intent versus impact is a concept we'll talk about a little bit later to sort of sum up what that in-game communication should look like. And then the last one, like we talked about before, the more macro level organizational communication in esports. So what does that information pipeline look like? And a lot of times this can make or break an esports company, right? Esports is a very fast-paced environment. You're going to be moving around. Things are going to change on the daily. Meetings are going to get canceled, things like that. So, it's important to know how to communicate from an organizational level as well. So the first one we'll talk about is organizational communication. Start with the big one. So the biggest thing to remember, first and foremost, is that promptness is key, right? There's nothing that's ever going to be too small to communicate. If I have, one of my players, playing and they, have a class that they have to, miss a league match, or if one of my graduate assistants can't make it to work a certain day, communication is key, and I would much rather somebody over communicate with me than come down to it and you didn't tell me something that was, ended up very crucial in my opinion, even though it seems small to you. So never feel like you're a burden for communicating something in esports. The smallest things can, really affect what that looks like in terms of, the effectiveness of that communication. And so whether it be, meeting reschedules, match reschedules, whether it be not showing up or you needed to cancel a meeting, as soon as you know this information, it needs to go to whoever it is that you're, collaborating with on whatever project it is. So the next one, there's a huge room for error. And the biggest thing I always tell people that I work with in esports or, my players is if you don't know, don't be afraid to ask. Esports is a very collaborative space. And there are going to be plenty of people that'll be willing to help you with whatever it is that you need. But if you don't, really know, and you ended up doing something that you didn't know how crucial it was to whatever project it is you're working on, whatever you're trying to do, it can end up being detrimental to everybody. Then everybody, has something to say to you for not communicating effectively. So you want to make sure that these things aren't happening, and that you're able to communicate that effectively and then ask for help when it's needed. A lot of times in esports you're going to be wearing multiple hats. Whether you're in a managerial position, whether you're a player, whether you're a director like me, like you're going to be wearing multiple hats. So don't be afraid to ask for assistance, in certain things, and learn how to delegate those things out as well. And so we sort of touched on this before, but last thing, esports is collaborative, right? It's a very collaborative space. This isn't a space where you have to work alone. 9 times out of 10, even if you are, the pinnacle or the head of whatever project it is that you're working on, you are always going to have somebody that's, your right-hand man or woman to be able to help you along in that journey. And it's really not a space for, control freaks, right? You're going to have to collaborate. You're forced to work with other people. My introverts, I'm sorry, but, this is a space where you're going to have to break out of that shell and really do something to assist other people and have other people assist you and delegate. Okay, so the next one we'll talk about is that precursory communication that we talked about before, right? And so like we said before, this is going to be something where, this communication is going to start before you even exchange words with another person. And so, like we said before, your introduction starts before, that chat, initiates itself. So this is your social presence, right? So obviously, a lot of you are younger, and social media, if you can use it, is a very, very powerful tool within esports. If you plan to work in esports, if you plan to be a player, you need to make sure you're branding yourself in an effective manner, right? And this is something that in esports, a lot of times when people want to know like what your reputation looks like, they're looking for your social media, right? Not even necessarily, in terms of numbers, right? It doesn't have to be, I have 10,000 followers on Twitter or I'm verified on Twitter. It's, what kind of content are you putting out on your social media platforms to further esports or to further your own esports branding, no matter what aspect of it you're involved in. So for me, what that looks like is, right, I'm, actively supporting my players. I'm supporting other programs, collegiately or intercollegiate on social media, right? Helping build the scene as a whole, and people, respect that and appreciate that. So make sure that you're, being very uplifting on your social media. Try to stay out of as much drama as possible, because like I said before, in esports, that's the first thing people are going to look at a lot of times is your social presence and what that looks like. Word of mouth is a huge one, okay? So in esports, anytime you work with somebody, somebody's going to have something to say about you afterwards. When they talk about, oh, this event went very, very well. I got to work with Sergio on this event. He really killed it, did a really good job. This is something that, is going to happen pretty often within that. So you need to make sure that your, exchanges with other people that you work with in esports are for the most part good. There's going to be times where, you butt heads with people, and that's okay, especially if it's out of like passion for wanting something to be great. But at the same time, as much as you possibly can, you want to make sure that those instances are minimal, and making sure you're having good, intentions with people that you work with. And then the last one is background observation, right? So, no matter whether it's in person, on social media, whatever the case may be, people are always watching what you do in this space. So make sure that you're, conducting yourself in a positive manner always as much as you can. And, making sure that, you're staying out of that drama like we talked about before, and really putting your best foot forward in every single esports project that you're a part of, because somebody is watching. You never know who, right? A potential employer, a potential teammate, potential recruiter, whatever the case may be. You need to make sure that you're doing things that, exercise the fact that you are the best esports prospect possible. And next, when in doubt, always make it formal. So it's much better to be safe and be formal than sending, an informal introduction to somebody. I cannot tell you, one of my biggest pet peeves is when esports recruits come to me and say, yo, or, what's up, or this or that, right? There's been plenty of recruits that I've even not talked to, anymore and ghosted simply because they, didn't approach me in a very respectful manner, right? So, when in doubt, just because, I'm a particular recruiter or a coworker, or whoever the case may be, might look young or, might be somebody that you feel like you can be loose with, that's cool. Be loose with them. But after that initial conversation, right, and after that initial, getting to know this person, right, and seeing, what kind of energy they uphold in that regard, or what communication looks like to that person, right? Everybody can't be communicated to the same, so you should be very flexible in how you communicate with different people. So, when in doubt, like I said, I always make it formal, sir, ma'am, whatever the case may be, email etiquette, whether it be in-person communication, through email, through social media, you want to make sure that you're, being as formal as possible when you're having those interactions. And the next one, get to the point. Okay, so this is a big one. If you ask any esports professional one of their pet peeves, this is going to be a huge one for a lot of people. Esports people do not like it when you send messages like hey or hi or yo and just leave it at that, right? We want to know what your point is. We have 100 other emails, 100 other Discord messages to get to. So we need to know what exactly it is that you want. And that's not to say that we don't want to talk to you, right, or entertain what you're saying, but it can get very tedious when we have to, take time out of our day to respond to a hey or a yo, type of message. So you can include the hey, right? Include a greeting always, but at the same time, make sure that, by the time I get to your message, if I have to respond to your message and check my Discord messages or emails at 9 o'clock at night when I should be in bed, I want to know what the point is, so I know, okay, this is urgent, or I need to get back to this later. So definitely make sure that you're always communicating your point, and not waiting until we have to respond with a hey or a hi, because 9 times out of 10 we're going to delete the email, delete the message, and never look back. So make sure you're doing that correctly. Okay, next one is in-game communication, right? So this is a big one just because for people that, want to get into esports as players or even coaches. Coaches I've seen, have red flags too when it came to esports communication and what that looks like. So the first things first is practice makes perfect, right? So it's easy for us to, game at home, and I'm even guilty of this, right? We game at home and nobody, is really looking, and so we don't conduct ourselves in the best manner in terms of being a good teammate, right? But practice makes perfect. The way you conduct yourself, when you're in that solo queue rain game is how you're going to end up, talking to eventual teammates or, whatever the case may be. So you want to make sure that you're conducting yourself in a good manner. Try to be as positive as possible. I know in certain games it's very, very hard, especially when your lobbies are bad. But you want to make sure that, you're practicing, what to say, how to be a flexible teammate in terms of communication. Because like we talked about before, same thing with, higher ups and coaches within your teammates. Everybody can't be communicated to the same. So make sure you're being a flexible communicator in game as well, because people are going to take notice of that. And so then this will also have great effect on you as a prospect, right? So for a lot of you, like we talked about before, whether you want to be in the professional side of esports, whether you want to be a player, whatever the case may be, people are watching a lot of times and you don't even know it, right? I've seen instances where players didn't know they were being streamed by the other team and they said something crazy in game. Or I've seen, people have different meetings that they didn't know were getting recorded and, somebody says something that they shouldn't have. So always conduct yourself as if you're on center stage and you're being recorded without even knowing it, right? To make sure that you don't slip up, you don't say anything that you shouldn't, and that, you don't negatively affect yourself as a prospect in whatever aspect of esports you're trying to get into. And then the last one is intent versus impact, right? So this is arguably the most important. And what intent versus impact means is I may say something and not, intend for it to come off as harsh as a teammate. But, in terms of impact, it might have hurt somebody because I wasn't being a flexible communicator. So, my teammate Jimmy can't be communicated to the same as my teammate Jimbo, right? So if Jimmy and Jimbo can't be communicated to the same, that's up to me as a teammate, especially if you're a leader on the team, to really understand how they are as teammates and how they take criticism, or how they take, different forms of communication. And so you really want to make sure that you're doing that effectively and making sure that you're being a flexible communicator to your teammates, so that, no conflict really happens. So you need to take time to learn your teammates, learn how each one should be communicated to, because in turn, they're going to show that same respect to you, right? You have a certain way that you take criticism, and how you like to be talked to. So your teammates are going to reciprocate that energy as much as possible. I guarantee you, if you take the time to learn, how they are, and how you can look to assist them, in game and out of game. Okay, so this is a big one. Abdul has told me that you all want to know how to be a better esports prospect. And so me as a collegiate director, these are just some things that, I pay attention to whenever, players are reaching out to me, or I'm reaching out to different players about potentially coming to my school. And I know for a fact, based on my interactions with other collegiate directors, that these are things that we look for, and in turn these are a lot of times things that professional esports or even top amateur esports companies are looking at in order to bring people in. So the first thing, like we talked about before, is social media, right? I want to hammer this home just because I think that young esports prospects don't really, if they do use esports, they don't use it in a very positive manner. And then if they, don't use it, then you're just holding yourself back from, discovery and different networking and things like that. So I want to make sure that you know to use it efficiently in a positive manner, whether that be YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, even LinkedIn. As you're never too young to make a LinkedIn, Facebook, even whatever the case may be. You need to make sure that your content and your social presence is being carried out in a manner that raises your stock, right? As a esports prospect. So whether that be posting clips, I've seen Fortnite in particular is one where I get one of my recruits for Fortnite coming next fall sends me a compilation or a montage of clips literally every week, right? And I love it, right? He's showing me he's still working hard even though he's already gotten the opportunity. He's steadily improving, and so you want to make sure that people see that, people see your improvement, even if it's a clip that you're proud of, right? It might not be the craziest thing in the world. Put that content out there, let people know that you're grinding, let people know if you're creating content, different things like that go a long way in making yourself look like a better esports prospect. The next one, expand your horizons, right? So it's easy to, get in a rut of, okay, this is what I do. I'm going to stick to this. I'm not really going to try to get into any other, avenue of esports. I'm a player. That's it. That's what I'm going to do. Some of the best people within my program that I know, dip into multiple things that can help contribute to my program, right? So for instance, I have a Valorant player. He can video edit. He can, do photography, different things like that, every esports program needs. And in collegiate, especially, there's a lot of times where that isn't really available to a lot of people. So if you can do those things, and if you can expand your horizons and really branch out and do more than just being a player, you're going to be a better prospect, and you're gonna get a lot more offers than just based on your esports skills. So if you can hone those esports skills in game, and then also work on other things too that make you unique as a potential esports prospect, you'll see a lot better results, I think. The next one, so good teammate experiences. So this is a big one. And so if having you in a team, on a team, or in a program is going to hinder other people from joining that particular team or program, I can almost guarantee you, you will not be recruited. And if you are recruited and it gets out, later on that you're being a hindrance in that regard, you're probably going to get dropped from whatever team or program that you're in. I've seen it happen firsthand, right? And so, recruiters don't want to take a risk on somebody that might be talented in game, but, is very toxic and keeps other people away. So, whether you're, like we talked about before, simply playing a game, because I've seen it happen to where people just queue up in a ranked game and then they get tweeted out, oh my God, this is this person's comms in this Valorant game. And this is why you shouldn't team with them, right? And that gets out, and then there's a whole sector of whatever social media platform that now knows, Sergio's a bad teammate and he doesn't communicate effectively, and so you should stay away from him. And so that gets around, right? Word gets around very fast in this scene, and so you want to make sure that you're having those good teammate experiences. If people have something to say about you on social media, let it be that this is the most positive person I met in this game. They were really positive and a really good teammate, and you'll be surprised at how long that goes. The next one is staying on the radar, right? So never be afraid, if you're, especially as a player, to check in often when it comes to talking to a recruiter, right? Some of my best experiences with some of my recruits have been the fact that they just communicate with me often, right? It could be once a week and you just tell me, hey, this is what's happening in game for me, or I just ranked up to this ranking game, right? Different things like that help out a lot, because I talk to, or recruiters are going to talk to so many different players on a regular basis. So the more you reach out and the more you communicate to make sure that you're on the top of our radar, the better off you're going to end up being. So it doesn't have to be an everyday thing, right? I don't need you, or recruiters don't need you DMing them on Twitter every single day about this, and that. But if you check in once a week, right, and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, or I'm competing in this tournament today, if you want to watch, or I streamed last night if you want to go back and watch it. I had a really good game on this character. Different things like that go a long way in making sure that you stay at the top of that list and you're fresh in our mind in comparison to some other players that might not reach out like that. They just go. We may have an initial conversation. They do their own thing. I'm going to remember you a lot better than I will that particular player. And the next one, something that might seem super simple, but very, very important when it comes to the workplace and in terms of being a player, is you want to be a culture player, right? So what can you contribute to me as a esports director and to my program beyond just being a good player, right? What do you provide culturally to the program in terms of are you a very positive person? Are you a leader? Are you creating a better environment for other people, within that particular space. Because I can find talent anywhere, but when it comes down to it, I can't find good leaders everywhere. I cannot find, people when the program might be, not doing too well in game, somebody that can bring that positivity out, somebody that can, come in one day and just say, hey, everybody, let's go do this together, because we had a really long week and finals are coming up and things like that, right? So different things like that, really make you stand out. If you're a good leader and then this goes back to all those communicative efforts that we talked about before. So if you can be a really good communicator, and bring a lot more to the culture of a particular team or program, people are going to take notice of that. And it's going to go even beyond your skill. You might not even be the most skilled player, right? I would much rather have a platinum Valorant player who's the most positive person ever, has a really good work ethic and wants to improve, versus an immortal player who constantly has a bad attitude, doesn't want to collaborate with his teammates, whatever the case may be. I would much rather have that platinum player that's, really going to contribute good things to the culture of the program. Okay, so this is a post-lesson assignment. Whether you're watching this later or whether you're watching it, during a standard time, whatever the case may be, if you have an aspiration to be an esports prospect, I want you to do 3 things to build your stock as an esports prospect, right? So this could be posting a clip to social media like we're talking about, learning a new esports skill, right, which is going along with our expanding our horizons thing that we talked about before. Join a recruitment platform, right? Especially if you're in high school looking to go to college for esports, there are a plethora of them. You have HSEL, Esports Tower, you have Stay Plugged In, which is a really good one. So do 3 of these things, and you don't have to necessarily send it to me, but definitely, try these things out and see, what kind of results you see in terms of, whether you're trying to work in esports and find an internship position, or if you're in high school trying to go to college for esports, further yourself, try these things out, do at least 3 of them, and see, where that takes you, and see if you can get into a rhythm, right? Don't even stop at 3. Keep building onto that, whether it be, maybe I set a goal for myself for 3 times a week. I'm going to post a clip to Twitter of my gameplay and, just continuously, post things like that. Or 3 times a week, I'm going to, reach out to different, colleges and see, what their esports programs look like. And maybe I can plan a visit, to their schools and see what that's like. So go ahead and do, like I said, start at 3, set a goal for yourself, keep it going, and making sure that you're, the best esports prospect that you can be. And then last thing, do not hesitate to reach out, ask me any questions that you might have. I'm pretty much always available. You can find me, I would say, probably on Twitter the best. And my Twitter is ImPhysics, ImPhysix. Perfect place to DM me and let me know of anything you need help with, any advice on how to go to college for esports, how to get into esports professionally. Instagram is another good one. You can find me in my tag there. And then if you ever can't get a hold of me and I'm, for whatever reason, and I'm streaming, feel free to spam my chat and say, why aren't you responding to me? And never hesitate to reach out and ask me any questions that you might have about esports communication, about esports in general, whatever the case may be. If you need to reach out to me and talk about it, we'll definitely hash it out. So, like I said, today we talked about a lot of things in terms of how to be an effective communicator in esports. So remember that in everything you do, you are communicating. Even if you're not directly talking to somebody about esports, the things you post on social media are communicating to different people within esports, right? How you carry yourself in game, you're directly communicating with people in esports. From an organizational level, right? The most crucial aspect of it is communication. When different things happen, esports is a very fast-paced, unpredictable environment, so you have to be ready to communicate as best as you can to the people that you need to communicate with. And so always remember that all eyes are always on you. Esports is a very collaborative, a very open, and a very transparent space. People are going to be seeing what you are doing at all times, and everything is sending a message. So you want to make sure that you're always presenting the best message possible to ultimately get to where you want to be within esports. So once again, my name is Sergio Brack. I am the Director of Esports at Ottawa University in Ottawa, Kansas. I greatly appreciate everybody that, tuned in and, took this lesson and gained something from it. I hope you gained something from it. Like I said before, if you all ever need any advice or anything, do not hesitate to reach out to me. And it's been a pleasure to present this to you. So I appreciate, every single one of you for tuning in and paying attention to this lesson. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Sergio. I truly appreciate it. I'm sure our students also truly appreciate you coming in and presenting information on how important effective communication is within esports organizations. At this time, I want to circle back around and thank our sponsors for bringing this course to you all. That is Mid-Continent Public Library, the Level Up Arena, Unified, and the Varsity Esports Foundation. That's going to be all for now. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time. This is Esports Academy.